Grindstaff, do you want to start with the executive officer's report, and when we get this oath, we'll be able to move ahead?
Do I want to start with the executive officer?
You do and you don't.
Yeah.
You do and you
That's
don't.
exactly
Yes.
accurate.
Yes.
I guess I'd like to ask Kurt to come up. And while he comes up here, I want to say a few words. For those of you that don't know, Kurt's been involved. Come on.
Yeah, right.
I know you hate this, but at some point somebody's got to say something. He's been trying to avoid public recognition as he is retiring at the same time I am. Kurt started in 1977, and his first committee was agriculture and water. Mm-hmm. So for those of us in the water world,
Farmer Kurt?
That was the committee that dealt with the first peripheral canal built. So he has been involved in those issues since 1977, off and on. And then for a number of years, I don't know how many years, he was Senator Mattey's budget person, and as the Republican leader, that meant that Kurt was heavily involved at the highest levels, working on budgets in the legislature for many, many years, was a key legislative staffer in getting those things done. He came over to CalFed in the early 2000s. He then became a consultant for DWR, and then was appointed again by Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2007, I think, to work for the California Bay Delta Authority, which was the CalFed agency, and has continued on as the legislative director for us with the starting up of the council. So he's been involved in these issues for 30 years, 35 years,
pretty
35
much.
Years.
Yeah.
So I should also mention that he actually did real work, because for 20 years he was on the board of Yolo County's flood control agency and served as board president, and they actually did real projects and got things done. And sometimes when you work for the state and you're in these kinds of positions, you forget what it means to actually get physical projects done and make real improvements. Well, Kurt has been involved in both areas, and was the leader of Yolo County when they did some very significant projects dealing with hydropower plants and making significant improvements to their system. So I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to say thank you to Kurt for all of his hard work, and we should all recognize many, many years of service to the people of the state. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Mr. Fiorini had a comment.
Well, I'd just like to say that growing up in an agricultural area that was served by Senator Mattey, I used to hear your name referenced many times. You were somewhat of a legend in our area.
A legend?
It's
living, I hope.
It's been a pleasure to work with you, Kurt, and we thank you for your contribution to moving the Delta Stewardship Council onto a good place.
You're welcome.
Kurt and I worked together from the 70s onward, off and on, and he's been a consummate professional, even-handed, and he's avoided the public limelight through his entire career. Some of us didn't, but he did, and the state's been better for it. Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it.
I want to weigh in, too. When Mr. Miller was trying to put together budgets for the Senate Republican leader, I would on occasion cause him a certain amount of work, because we were always angling to close down some of the loopholes that Senator Mattey wanted in the budget, or in other words, clinic funding for health care stuff, as opposed to what we thought on the Assembly side was more important issues. And if you have never been rolled over by State Senator Mattey and Kurt Miller on a budget issue, it is an experience I commend to all of you. It may not stop your activities, but it sobers your estimation of success. So I retreated to the position of saying, well, if I can make them work for this to kill me, maybe that's a success. And Kurt, one of the attractions of coming here was your participation in the startup of the council.
Thank you.
Don?
Kurt, I've only worked with you more recently, but certainly knew at least of you prior to working here with the council effort. I just want to extend my congratulations to you on a long and I think very accomplished career. Again, maybe one more behind the scenes than not, but it's important work. It's good work, and it's work on behalf of the people of the state of California, and certainly in many different roles and settings. And I want to wish you well in your retirement. And again, thank you for your your effort and certainly your expertise and collegiality during the time I've served on this council. So I wish you well.
You're welcome. Thank you. These two, Phil and Patrick, are what's the word? Exemplars of the former legislative temperament that I think we've lost. These are my editorial comments. But I was fortunate to go through that era, and it's a opportunity that not a lot of people have, but it was a memorable one. I'll never forget it. It was really well done on everybody's part, I think. Now, what a lot of you folks don't know is with Joe's retirement, coincidental with mine, we actually are opening a new business in Hemet together. We've got a retail establishment. We'll be selling guns and ammo and liquor, and we have an adjunct dry cleaning establishment on site too for those that need that kind of service.
We're supposed to wait to announce till after.
As soon as funding arrives, we'll get started with that little project. Your packets have a ledge summary dated the 20th. Since then, the governor's been busy. So in recent days, he signed 3 bills of note with respect to Delta issues, and I'll go over those in short order. They're all authored by Senator Wolk. Her SB 200 extends the state cost share on levee improvements through 2018, where the percentage will be stable at 75%. Statute would normally roll it back to 50%, but that'll remain at the higher level till July of 2018. Of course, the problem there is funding for the state share of any of these projects, given the current situation with respect to finances in the state. But in any case, the percentage prevails. Her SB 1278 requires DWR to complete a set of floodplain maps by next July, covering the region of the state plan of flood control that'll show the 200-year elevations for flood in those various areas. Once those maps are released, cities and counties and local jurisdictions in the floodplain, the state plan area, are required to update their general plans to reflect the new data on the 200-year levels. And finally, the governor signed SB 1495, which amends the Reform Act statutes with respect to covered actions. The current and the final version of the bill grants specific dredging depths to Stockton, the Port of Stockton, the Port of Sacramento, specifies the depths, specifies the reaches of the channels that are allowed to be dredged to those levels, and grandfathers that type of activity into their system. Other than that, the budget issues are dormant as they're waiting the results of the November election. And on the state budget itself, they're still holding and running an $8 billion cash flow deficit month to month in the current climate. And the long-term debt is somewhat stable at $35 billion. One other note, the state did a multi-billion-dollar bond sale early in the week and subscribed the entire thing at about 3 and 3.5% interest. So they were successful in getting GO bonds out to the market. It wasn't specified.
Multi-purpose GO bond.
Yeah, there are categories specified in the bond covenants that cover everything from mental health facilities to current authorizations for some resource remaining financing needs to be done in Prop 50 and 84. So that completes my report.
You might want to comment on one bill which was you had reported to us earlier, and the governor just signed it, and this is the Ing bill, AB 685, which declares there is now a human right to water for various individual human purposes. It gets a lot of attention from groups. Aqua had opposed it. A lot of the entities that come from represent economically disadvantaged communities supported it, and so it has some salience in Central Valley issues. But you got any hunch about where that law goes? I mean, it's a general declaration, but it is now a statute. Some have even suggested it supersedes for future water contracts the surrendering of the urban preference that was given away in the Monterey Agreement in 1994. I'm not sure about that. But.
That part I'm not sure about. The language itself is permissive with respect to recognizing that so-called right. It depends on a number of factors specified in the bill, so it's not an absolute guarantee of that consideration trumping all others. And you're right, the target areas are Central Valley towns, Firebaugh, Madera, Mendota, those places that are having some real problems with their quality. But the permissive part will just fold that factor into determinations of funding and planning, I would assume, in the future.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right.
Kurt,
Thanks.
we will miss you a lot. Now, Mr. Grindstaff, do you have some other things that you'd like to say?
Okay.
Or not, as you prefer.
Well, tomorrow probably at my farewell luncheon, I'll say a few words, and I just want to thank those of you that are here today, for everyone that's participated in this process and that I've been involved with over my now 8+ years at the state. It's been a challenge, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I have learned an immense amount, and I have a great deal of respect for all of you, even those of you that I disagree with. No, but it's been a wonderful experience for me, and I come away from it believing even more strongly that we can make progress, that as difficult as it is the right thing to do.
I have been talking to Joe periodically about his departure and his reflections on how many years in the water field, 30-something.
Yeah, 30-something years.
A lot of years.
We don't talk about how many years.
Well, you started when you were 10.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
I was still in grade school when Kurt started.
Well, let's not exaggerate this.
Okay.
Joe is also, I've urged him, and I think he's kind of interested in the notion of putting his thoughts in writings on reflections on water issues generally, and I think all of us would benefit from that when you get around to doing it in between reading science fiction, fantasy novels, and pretending to take a vacation, as you promised your wife.
I have promised her that.
Okay, more later on that.